Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back for our second episode here with Alvaro. I am George Armistead.
Hey.
Alvaro, how's it going today, man?
That's really nice. Good. Everything's great out here on the West Coast. What's it like out there in Philly?
You know, it's kind of a springish day here. It's real windy, a lot of wind out of the southwest. I'm sitting at my window here facing onto the street in my condo in Philly. And, I keep seeing like these, it's so windy that I'm seeing like trash every now and then flying around. And I think, oh, is that a raven? And it's not. But I have seen some turkey vultures drifting around. You can definitely feel there's a lot of folks out and about kind of moving around. You know, people are feeling optimistic, getting vaccinated, feeling like spring is here. Birds are moving. Maybe a swallow-tailed kite is going to drift on by or something. So, yeah, there's kind of spring optimism in the air here, I think.
Think big. Hey, when you were a kid, right, would you have seen a raven in Philly?
No. There were zero. I think like historically, there's like zero historical records of raven in the city or even, the surrounding area until like about 2010. Now, I see them about half the time I go out now. And I don't know if they got shot out of here during, colonial era or what, but they are really moving down the coast, as I think is what you were kind of driving at.
Yeah, they've really expanded down southwards, and I don't know if that's a recolonization or if it's actually a new colonization, like they've expanded their niche or something. But most species are moving northwards, right? Raven's one that's moving south. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's always been among my top reincarnation birds, the raven. I thought if I was going to come back, what would I like to come back as? Raven, they can go just about anywhere. They can eat just about anything. They're super smart, pretty social, be a good one.
They slide on snow, like they make snow slides.
That's right. That's right.
They're kind of the otters of the bird world.
It's pretty good. Yeah. I think they see eye to eye with the mustelids,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw you, you had an interesting yard bird today.
Oh, the funny goldfinch?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So, I posted this funny goldfinch that to me, so here we have American goldfinch, lesser goldfinch, and pine siskin, which is a relative. And this thing, I saw it, and I thought, oh, there's lesser goldfinch. And I looked at it with my binoculars. And that's not a lesser goldfinch. What is it? And it's seldom that a backyard bird kind of trips me up, because you're seeing the same things over and over and over again. And I thought, oh, I don't know what that. Then I started thinking, it kind of looks like a bit of pine siskin in it. Maybe it's a hybrid. Then I went to, it's an American goldfinch, but just really grayish rather than the other birds here. The other females look yellow and green on the back and yellow on the head. And this just looked kind of grayish and dull green, weird. But interestingly, there's, I kind of posted it around. Some people sort of say it kind of looks normal to them. And I thought, really? I mean, is this like a geography thing that maybe they look like that in some places? Perhaps they're retaining some the whole winter plumage has just become worn and it hasn't molted into the breeding kind of more yellowish green thing. And so now I'm thinking, this is kind of neat because these are the kinds of things that I think frustrate a lot of birders. It's like, I just want to know what it is, but I don't. I actually want to learn what I can from this.
Mm-hmm.
The end result is not as interesting as the whole idea of like, wow, could it be that in some places, goldfinches are really grayish like this? Maybe. Yeah. Or could it be that every so often some of them don't molt and look grayish like this? Maybe. But I just never had thought about it. So the fact that I'm thinking about it is kind of the joy for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's common bird that looks very uncommon for somebody that knows them very well.
Yeah.
Um,
So did you think it looked weird?
yes, I thought it looked weird. I mean, we get some really worn, dull-looking goldfinches here, but I've never seen one so devoid of color as that. I was thinking, is there like a Great Basin, American goldfinch population or something that's real dull or something? I don't know, but yeah, I haven't seen one quite like that.
Yeah. So that's good to know. Confirmation that it's not just weird in my eyes, but yeah, it's people put down backyard birding. Some of the best birding can happen in the backyard because you're repeating, right? You're seeing everything over and over again. That's the real training for your eyes and your mind. Um, I think anyway.
Yeah,
Like
it's
you
good.
and your plastic bags. Eventually, one of those plastic bags going by is going to be a kite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Sooner or later. I have had Mississippi kite from this window, which is quite a good bird for Pennsylvania. Soon to be off the review list, I think, but
Huh.
still quite a good bird. So yeah, no, I think you're right. Having whether it's your backyard, local patch, a place that kind of anchors you is your waypoint against which you measure other places that you go and learn about birds. Backyard's a great place to start and where some of the most thrilling discoveries have been made for
Yeah.
many birders. So yeah, man, I wanted to share a couple pieces of news.
Well, yeah. Are you going to talk about the fact that you've been around? You've been traveling, or is that coming up later?
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. And I mean, also, I think I let you know, we had our meeting yesterday with our colleague, Molly Brown, who's our sort of magician behind the scenes here. And yeah, I mentioned that I had just gotten my first COVID shot. So am thrilled that in a couple weeks I'll get the second one and, be well on our way here. And I don't remember if I mentioned in the first podcast, but that I'm fairly recently engaged as well to
Yes.
my fiance, Kristen Klein, which is very exciting. And
Very exciting. The whole world is congratulating you right now. You realize you got to feel that this is a hard medium to feel the crowd, but you just got to
yeah.
feel the crowd for a moment here. And say,
Oh, I
yeah.
feel it, man. I feel it. I feel the warmth. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. And yeah, but no, and as you say, we just got back. I did my first trip really since, this whole pandemic started. Kind of had to rush home from Canada when it started a little over a year ago. And
You should have stayed in Canada, actually, but
yeah, really. Yeah, winters might have been a little grim, but yeah, arguably a better place to be than Philadelphia. But
well, yeah, at least in the early part of the COVID scene, it kind of had its thing together.
yeah, it's
But
true.
yeah,
But yeah, me and Kristen took off for Colombia on 27th February. Spent a week in the Llanos in eastern, sort of northeastern Colombia, and then Kristen flew back home to Philly. She had to work; she's a nurse, and then I continued on sort of a scout / pleasure trip to sort of where the Orinoquia region of eastern Colombia meets the Amazonia region, really kind of more in Orinoquia still, but it felt very Amazonian in terms of birds, and spent another week there. And in between, had a couple days in Bogota, went up to Sumapaz, finally got Bogota Rail, which was kind of overdue for me. Chris Bell at the Birders Show took me and my buddy Todd out, and we had to work for it, but eventually it paraded out beautifully. And we saw the Apolinar's wrens too, which are real cool. And then, yeah, I mean, it was just good to be traveling again. We, obviously traveling towards the end of this pandemic, it wasn't like there were zero risks. We were real careful as we could be. We had to have negative PCR tests to enter Colombia, and then had to have them to get back into the U.S. So that all went pretty well. And yeah, I mean, it was different, right? It's different situation now. one nice thing was the community we went in Eastern Colombia there, they'd actually all already been vaccinated. There's a
Hmm.
bunch of indigenous communities there, and the government actually worked fast to get them vaccinated because they were at risk from the Brazilian strain. So we got there, and
Oh yeah.
honestly, it was about as, it's hard to imagine a much safer place to be. All the birding was outside, all the restaurants open air, not big crowds anywhere. It's a small town, and everybody had been vaccinated. And for me, it was my first trip to Amazonia, really. I think of about a third to half the birds were new birds I'd never even seen before. So pretty exciting
Yeah.
overall.
So I want to let people in on a little trade secret here, from the bird tourism trade. So, guides will sometimes go on these trips to do reconnaissance, recce trips, like to figure things out, see if the hotels work, and play it up like it's some kind of really complex, difficult, almost sometimes even dangerous thing to be out there. But in fact, they're always pleasure trips, as you mentioned. In fact, that's, they're good fun for everybody. It's
Yeah,
where the guide, in a sense, gets to really, without having the stress of anybody else there with them, figure every stuff out. And it's an interesting. I mean, one could do a whole talk on reconnaissance trips because you really are going into the unknown sometimes. Some places are brand new, and it really isn't dangerous. I just made that up, but um, it it is a whole aspect of, I think, guiding that is not talked about much, but it's actually incredibly important for every. Sometimes one person will go to a new place, like you might have, and open it up for hundreds of other people to come through, and then local communities to actually be able to take in on the birding economy in a sense, and hopefully those indigenous communities there actually will reap some benefits from all this in the future. But anyway,
yeah,
there's my aside on reconnaissance trips. They're pretty cool. Some
it's true.
good times
Yeah,
can be had.
yeah, well worth noting, and the spot I did go, it was in part for fun, but as you say, it was a recce trip as well, a place that I expect to lead trips to in the future. Called Inírida there, and a very few groups really have been so far to this place, and it is largely indigenous folks that have the land there and all the great birding spots, and they do stand to benefit from ecotourism. So the one thing that's crazy there is there's a bit of a population boom going on, especially with some folks coming in from across the border. So hopefully the habitat will continue to be preserved. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, you hope that birding ecotourism in general will help towards that end. But yeah, man, I got my first giant river otters. Saw
Wow.
the boto, the dolphins there, and Amazon River dolphins, and had
Those are the pink ones, right?
yeah, the ones in the Orinoco are not quite as pink as the ones in the Amazon, but and I think they're a little smaller too. But still, yeah, they're rosy, and yeah, those were cool to see. And yeah, one of the things, I don't remember if I told you, Al, one of my favorite things we saw was we climbed that beautiful Tepui there in the Cerros de Mavacure. About halfway up, had beautiful orange-breasted falcon perched up. And this is the first one I've ever really seen well. I'd seen one other, I think Dan Lane and I saw one in Bolivia that just kind of rocketed by real quick. Didn't get much of a view of it, though. And this one perched, and it didn't care about us. We kind of found it when we were already pretty close to it. It surprised each other, but the bird didn't seem to care about us. We watched it for a good 10 minutes. Finally, it pooped. Like it was about to take off, and I was like, okay, it's going to go. And sure enough, it goes shooting out over the forest, high above the forest. We're just watching the backside of it as it heads away, and all of a sudden you realize coming the other direction is a roadside hawk, just kind of, stretching its wings, first flight up in the morning, looking sort of happy-go-lucky, flying along, and all of a sudden he catches sight of this orange-breasted falcon rocketing towards him, and he drops like a stone. He wanted no part of that falcon. He was like, oh, just like,
I'm dead.
yeah, he was like, I am out,
Boneless.
I am gone. Yeah, and the orange-breasted falcon.
I'm boneless.
Exactly. Just like that falcon was ripping around. I mean, that thing owned that area. It was really impressive to see that. But we saw a bunch of good stuff, but those were some of the highlights. Dolphins.
And these, these tepuis, if people haven't been to South America, they're kind of interesting mounds, like big rock outcroppings that sort of pop out of nowhere, the classic sort of romancing the stone kind of, waterfalls popping out of these mountains in the middle of that don't look like mountains. They look like just single hills. That's what they look like.
The ones in Colombia.
I saw a video of you like climbing up one of those, and it looked almost like going up to see the horned guan in Guatemala or something. You looked kind of tired when you were getting up there. It seemed like it was kind of a strain. It's not for everybody to go up to this spot.
This is true. It was a challenging hike. I mean, I think it'd be a challenging hike for just about anybody. But my buddy Todd was with me, and he's fit as he can be. And he was like, this is a tough hike. I got up there. They practically had to drag me up there. But I did get up, and, you were saying it's, some of these places aren't really dangerous. I will say my buddy Roger told me last time he did that hike, they had 4 different fer-de-lance on the side of the trail on the hike up there.
Wow.
4, that's a lot. That's a lot of fer-de-lance. Yeah.
And
for folks.
And for people who don't know George, he does not like snakes, and that's a snake that you leave alone.
Yes.
Boy, you're selling this place, man.
Well, I do think most folks could do the first leg of that hike without any trouble. It's steep but short, and from there, even you get a marvelous view and a good chance to see the falcon. But yeah, going much further, you certainly thought about it. The only snake we saw up there was a little chicken snake, which is actually kind of cute. But yeah, as you know, I love seeing snakes from a distance, but man, if they surprise me, I will shriek like a small child. I really, suffer from that sometimes.
Yeah. Snake-aphobia. I'm sure there's an official name. Usually George knows the big words, but I'm not sure he's going to come up with this one.
Yeah.
Herpetophobia or something.
Yeah. I don't know.
Serpentophobia.
Suffering from it so acutely, I really ought to know, but not in this case. But
no, that sounds really great. I mean, it's a little uncomfortable to talk about travel even for us, and I'm sure some people will be thinking, oh boy, it's should somebody be traveling, so on. And it's a risk assessment, right? It's a real idea of like testing and COVID, what's going on in the local area, what's going on where you live, and so forth. And it's particularly difficult for us because, I think people know us as people that travel for work as bird tour guides and educators and so forth. But actually travel, as I haven't been able to do it for a year, I've realized that it kind of defines who I am. And without travel, I've felt a little lost.
Yeah,
I felt a little bit like, So, and it has nothing to do with the work or the income. Those are separate issues from the fact that I've just not been allowed to do something that is part of who I am.
Yes.
So it's a real difficult. When somebody says to me, "Well, I guess you have trepidation about travel." I actually don't. At least for myself, I can't wait to go somewhere and feel part of my personality coming back to me. So,
yes,
I'm sure you felt that too.
Very much so. And as you say, it's one of these things where I keep telling people, I feel like all opinions are valid, right? You have to assess for yourself what you're comfortable with. And I keep reminding myself that there are risks no matter what you do, if the minute step into your bathtub or out your front door or, take a bite of food, there's risks all the time. Some of them we just take for granted. Now, obviously, traveling during a pandemic is, not necessarily the same thing, but we looked at the fallen numbers. We looked at the precautions. In this case, Kristen was fully vaccinated and a nurse herself. As you say, it's been a rough year. This was something I felt like, as in her case, Kristen, she's been treating COVID patients for, a year now and felt like she deserved to do something. And we wanted to do something. I wanted to do something, being somebody who works in travel. So yeah, we made that choice, and it was a thrill. And it I don't think I'll ever take travel for granted, as I may have fallen into the habit of doing in years past. I sure didn't take it for granted this time. And it is, as you say, it's a core part of my being, a core part of your being. It's what we do. So, or a big part of what we do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're starting to see signs. In fact, I'm wearing my Hawaiian shirt here in honor of your upcoming trip to Hawaii, Alvaro.
Yeah. Next month. We've got a trip, with Mandy Talpas, and Molly Brown, actually taking people out, showing them birds in Hawaii. And it's interesting that, for me, assessment of places, islands have been important. Islands don't have the flow of people in the same way that mainland sites do. Some of them been able to control COVID much more readily than others, New Zealand being a real prime example. But Hawaii has actually been, on the whole, doing pretty well on testing regimes and so forth before you get on the plane. And the fact that, everybody going is vaccinated, or at least for the most part, if not, probably will be by then. But in any case, we felt, and it's within the U.S., so there's also some little lessening of the risk there.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people are ready to do something and are assessing those risks themselves. Outdoor dining, picnic lunches. There's going to be some things that we're going to do a little differently than maybe sort of the standard trip. But I think it's going to be fun. Pelagics are always good outdoor activities.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that in mind, folks. Viruses don't like humid environments with 10, 15 knot winds. So, but being outside on a boat, quite a good spot to go and see birds and enjoy wildlife
whales
without
and
having
dolphins.
to fear. Yeah. So we'll see how it works.
Yeah, I just signed up to do to be a leader on some of Brian Pattison's trips coming up in spring out of Hatteras. I haven't been the last couple of years, and surely after this last year, I am hungry for it. Hungry to get out there and see black-capped petrels and shearwaters and storm petrels and hopefully some whales and dolphins too. So I've got the pelagic bug. And what are you hoping to see on your boat trips off Hawaii?
God, I can't say. I'm kind of hoping to just be surprised, but I think I'd love to see a Bulwer's petrel, especially the Hawaiian. Well, I don't want to get into all the details, but all these Bulwer's petrels all over the world are probably different species, and this could be a different one. And it's not like I've really seen a Bulwer's petrel. I had a glimpse of one once, so actually, that's the worst kind of bird. Like your Orange-Breasted Falcon, actually, same thing. Like
a taste of honey being worse than none at all.
Right. You just sort of say, there it is. But it wasn't a very good look. So you actually, that bird climbs up, those species climb up on your list of things you want to see more so than something you've never seen at all. So,
Absolutely.
it's the better view desired birds are the ones that kind of capture attention. But it'd be great to see Neil Shearwater. Never seen those, and I'd be up for anything. White-necked petrel.
Yeah. What
I
about
mean,
black winged? That's the one I always wanted out there was black winged petrel.
black-winged petrel, yeah.
Yeah. It's a
But
little
you
local
you
area.
never know. It could you might just see a Noddy and a Booby.
Yeah.
You never know with these trips.
Yeah.
Uh,
That wouldn't be bad. Blue gray Noddy. There you go. That's what you need.
there you go. But no, one of the things that actually, if you're talking about these seabirds and stuff, I was thinking the other day about our climate regime here. Just recently, we've had
Yes.
there's this
I wanted to ask you
there's
about
this.
this.
I know the RRR, and it's not rest and relaxation or anything, but there's this guy Daniel Swain, and he's a climatologist. He's a young guy, and a few years ago, he was studying. He was a grad student, and he realized that when in the 2013 kind of that time frame, there was this situation that happened over winter where a ridge of high pressure parked itself offshore from California. Now, a ridge of high pressure means that you don't get rain. In fact, it makes the front go around it, like over the top. So we didn't get very much rain. We had this drought. Actually, the last big drought in California was roughly in that period, the next few years. And this ridge stayed there, and it didn't move, and it didn't weaken, and it was just weird. Nobody had ever seen it before. So he called it the ridiculously resilient ridge, the RRR.
I love that
And
name.
this thing caught on because it was just crazy for the climate and weather people. It's like, what's going on? Well, it turns out that this ridge is also associated with a change in the winds on the ocean, and the ocean then warms up, and you get the blob. So if you've ever heard of the warm water blob that parked itself off of California, roughly at that time of the 13, 14, 15 or so, it's all related. And to give you an idea of what happened, the water warmed up so much that boobies started showing up in numbers. That's when the booby invasion kind of started in California. We had movements of blue-footed boobies. Next year we had brown boobies. Fish from the south came north.
Even some Nazcas started to show up more. Was that related to that?
It's all kind of post that period. In fact, it just really shook up the ocean. It was almost like if you were in New Jersey on the coast and you woke up and you opened up the windows one day and instead all of the avifauna from Florida was in your backyard. It was a massive shift of hundreds of miles northward for creatures that usually were in Mexico.
Wow.
It even affected little small worms and all sorts of other stuff. And well, it's happening again. So that's the thing. And these are the kinds of things. It's almost like the stock market. When you say, "Oh, we're entering a bear market," and you don't really know that you're in it until later. They say, "Well, okay, now we confirmed it. 3 months ago, a bear market started." It's like that. So they've just confirmed that our RRR has been happening this winter. Set up shop in California, off of California, and that's why it's been such a dry winter. We've had a couple of storms, some good ones, but really low water last year. So we're entering a drought. Now the next thing is, okay, what will happen with the ocean temperature? Is it going to warm up? And are we going to get another blob situation? So lots to think about.
You showed a big graphic on your Facebook page. It was like I mean, this blob looked like it encompassed an enormous area. Is that the blob from this year, or is that the one from, I think it was 2013?
That was actually the ridge.
The ridge
That was
itself.
the high pressure ridge itself. So that was the air part of this rather than the water part of
Okay.
this. So, and that seems, you know, this is also new that this guy, Daniel Swain, so on, he's kind of put out papers on this and so forth and kind of changed the way people view this, relationship here between ridges, storms, water temperature, and how this might be a new phenomenon that is perhaps related to climate change. Climate people tend to be pretty conservative to giving any one event causation, but it's pretty much what they're thinking. So it's not good news. But as it's always, birders, we might find some rare birds due to it, so that kind of makes us happy. But on the whole, it's not good for the environment.
It sort of creates like a desertification of the the waters around it. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, yeah. Usually, warm water has fewer nutrients than cold water. Cold water is bringing nutrients either from more polar areas or from the bottom up towards the top. So to the where the sunlight is. So then you are getting more of that tropical water, which actually isn't that
Nutrient
great
rich.
in terms of
Yeah.
Um, on on the other hand, one of the weird things that's happened is we've had a lot of wind, so we're getting a lot of upwelling right close to the coast. So the water is actually cold close to the coast, and we had that happen at times during the blob era too. That the water was really warm offshore and to our north, and yet we had really cold water here. So we had everything that local captains call it the squeegee effect. Basically, all of the food was closer to the shore, and all of the whales and all of the stuff was within the first 10 miles,
Huh.
which usually isn't the case. Often they're further, 20 miles out, 25 miles out. So it really looked good, right? It looked like, oh, it's full of life. But in fact, what
Everything had
would
been
have been
pushed
30,
up.
40
Right?
miles of life,
Yeah.
were pushed right up against the coast. So, yeah, it's also variable that you can't predict what's going to happen. But the fact that another RRR, the triple R, is set up is scary, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Ridiculously resilient ridge sounds like a brand new razor that just came out.
I know.
They're
That's right. Or,
pushing.
or a big truck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but not
Yeah,
good news. I do remember, it's funny when you posted that, I was thinking I remember going to the Salton Sea that year, the only time I've ever been to the Salton Sea, and seeing some of the blue-footed boobies that had made it there. And I think that year it was like a record number, right? It was like dozens, if I
yeah,
remember.
yeah. And they were regular enough that you could sit at a coastal spot where migrant seabirds go by and just wait, and you could see a blue-footed booby go by. So it was a little crazy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
So
know,
we'll see.
Alvaro, where I once saw a blue-footed booby was in Oregon.
Yeah, that's right. I was there.
You were there. Yep.
Uh, I remember. I as the classic kind of thing you shouldn't do when you're a birder talking to anybody, an experienced birder, is to assume, right? So one of the participants said, "Hey, what's this brown thing sitting here on the rock?" Um, it's and I just immediately, I remember it was me or you. It immediately went to must be an immature Brand's cormorant, and started giving a spiel about how Brand's cormorants are brown when they're young, without even looking at the bird. And I think then we looked. I was like, "Oh my god, that's a booby!"
Yeah, the way I remember it is, yeah, it was like, yeah, we're there at Yaquina Head in Oregon, just there to, on a tour, looking to take in the expected birds like Brandt's cormorant, picking out some pelagic cormorants, maybe, whatever we see. We're going for the
Pigeon
expected.
guillemot,
Yeah, pigeon guillemots, the expected stuff that's fun to see, on in the cliffs and around the rocks and in the water there. And the participant, I remember his name was Bill, and I remember
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I remember him saying that, "What's this brown bird?" And I remember, like, I panned into it. I'm like scanning. Just as he said that, I panned into it, and I just go, "Oh my God." And I was just like, and that was all I could say. I kept saying, "Oh my God." And all of a sudden you go, "Is that a blue-footed booby?" And I just kept going, "Oh my God." I just like, it was like, I knew what it was, but it was like, "Nope, you're wrong." Your brain was like, "That's a blue-footed booby." "Nope, incorrect. Can't be here. Incorrect." It was like this negative feedback loop that just like kept, short circuiting my brain.
Maybe my lecture on the Brandt's cormorant was internal, and I just didn't let it go. But I was thinking it. I was like, brown bird on the rocks going to be a juvenile Brandt's cormorant. Yeah, but that was a big commotion because do you remember that it was by the lighthouse, and I think there had never been one in Oregon before. I think it was the first one.
Yeah, first state record. Yeah.
And we reported it, and the booby promptly after we left sat on the kind of downslope of the rock rather than the obvious part of the rock. So the only way the Oregon birders could see it was to actually take the tour of the lighthouse and go up to the top.
That's right.
And then from the top of the lighthouse, and this was the next day because I think it only stuck around for a day. They would see it, and apparently there were pictures of like all these birders lined up at the lighthouse because you were only allowed like 5 minutes up there or something before you had to come down the steps, and the next group had to go up. So all these birders would get 5 minutes up at the top of the lighthouse to see the booby and then come down. And it was quite we actually that was a legendary trip. We were finding all sorts of stuff all over the place. I recall, and
yeah, Hudsonian godwit was another good one that we had on that trip. And
that's right. Some warblers in the interior.
That's right. Yeah, hooded warbler. I remember was over there at the refuge out east that I'm forgetting the name of, the big refuge where they had the protests.
Wasn't there a Cape May as well or something? I don't know. But it was a good trip.
Yeah. The other thing I remember about the booby was that we were trying to figure out how to get the word out because we knew a few Oregon birders, but this was early 2000s. It was like 2002 or something. And people had cell phones for the most part, but not everybody. And I remember we were trying to figure out how to get the word out to tell people about this bird. We knew it was a really good bird, potential state first record. And I remember the two people I called. One was Paul Lehman, and he was up on St. Lawrence Island in Alaska. So I was calling him to get the word out about this bird in Oregon, right where we were, because I knew he'd have contacts. The other person I called was our buddy and recently passed was Ned Brinkley. And he was like, "That's amazing. But look, I'm literally on a pelagic trip. We're steaming out to sea. He's like, I can't get in touch with anybody for a couple hours." So it was just one of those things here you are, birds right here. We don't know who to call. So we're calling people on opposite sides of the country to try to get the word out.
Yeah. But yet somehow I think Paul did get the word out to somebody. Then it kind of filtered through.
Yeah.
Those are cool things when you just connect with a rare bird like that. The excitement of finding an unusual something or other is always the best, I think.
Yeah. The element of discovery is one of the great things about birding.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I wonder how many boobies they've had by now, It's like, somebody's going to go to eBird now and they go, there's 15 of them. What's the big deal? Well, it was the first kids back in the day.
Yeah, I'm sure since the RRR set up shop, they probably had quite a few more by now. But to
think there was a point in time that a cardinal, there was the first cardinal showed up in Massachusetts or something, and that was a thing, and now they're everywhere.
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah,
stuff has
it's
changed with climate is changing
yeah,
so much, so fast.
yeah. It's yeah. It's kind of like I can only laugh about it because if you think too much about it, you can get bummed out.
Yeah. Things are going to change no matter what any of us do. All you can do is do your best and hope your fellow humans do the same. Otherwise, yeah,
Mhm.
I figure you might as well try to lead a happy life while you can. So, Al, we're at about 40 minutes here. One thing I did want to ask about was I know you got a talk coming up. And this is sort of, you'd mentioned it sort of involves like comparison of lizard brain, animal brain, thinking fast, thinking slow. Tell us about this talk you got coming up.
Yeah. So um, it's based. Well, I've been doing a talk about how the brain identifies birds for a few years, but there's this book by Daniel uh, Kahneman, who's he's Nobel Prize winner in economics, and he's got a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And this talk is called Birding Fast and Slow, and it really is amazing how a lot of the brain studies that have been done and how people make decisions and work through things are so applicable to birding, and they're so applicable to understanding not only how we enjoy birding but also how we can learn to be better at identifying birds, or even how to be I would call it an intentional birder, like where you're going out with certain intentions of getting connected to nature and your whole, or maybe you're going out to find a rare bird or something, but really knowing and sort of understanding the benefits and things that birding brings to you and trying to almost like reap those benefits intentionally. But yeah, it's about, you know it's a lot of things are coming together for me, like health, wellness, identification, why I like gulls, like why people like bright warblers,
It's amazing you were
backyard
able to
birding.
sneak the gull, the
Yeah,
laryngophile, the gull love in there.
yeah,
The rest of these somehow. It's impressive. Yeah.
yeah. But we have sort of two pathways in the brain, and one of them does things automatically, and one of them does things in a very calculated, um, analytical way, and they're working at the same time. And what I've kind of started realizing from kind of getting into this, the basic gist of it is that new birders do everything analytically. Actually, being a new birder and learning birds is really brain intensive.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, can be even tiring, overwhelming. And experienced birders do it all automatically. They have shifted so much to the sort of lizard brain reflex type activity in our head that it's much easier for us to just go out and enjoy and just like almost be at ease completely as a birder out there, just taking it all in, even when
Mm-hmm.
millions of things are happening. In fact,
Right.
the more stuff that's happening, the more enjoyable it can be. Well, for a newer birder, it's actually tough work for the brain, to actually do all this. And
Yes.
and
It's a
I'm trying to, I'm trying to understand too how to teach people how to do this. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great topic. Rich topic. I look forward to checking this out. I thinking when you're talking about it, you're right. Like I love just letting birds kind of wash over me, taking in the experience. Knowing that these things are out there, kind of leading their independent lives, and they really don't care about me at all. They're just doing their thing and having an understanding of their journey. And I think about a place like Cape May, which is close to here in Philly, and one of the birding meccas of the entire world. And if you get a good flight day, I've been there with groups, and it's just as you say, for the experienced, it's beyond thrilling. And I really think it can be thrilling for anybody. But I've seen it for new birders where there's so much happening at once. Birds are shooting around overhead, bush to bush, where they actually, it's like stressful. They feel like they feel like they're just missing stuff. They're not actually seeing stuff. They're only missing stuff. And it's like, you have to actually kind of take it down a couple notches and be like, just experience it. And that's sometimes better than trying to sort out everything you see, because it can be pretty overwhelming at times.
Yeah, and our brain really does not like loss. We think of loss as a stronger motivator than gain. So the fact that somebody might say, "Oh my gosh, I know there's lifers flying over my head right now that I cannot see or cannot tell," that is actually painful to a birder. While to experienced birder, they know exactly what's going over, or they have a pretty good idea, and they're just kind of relaxed with it. All they're experiencing is gain. That's another aspect of this talk too. It's like the whole, our brains are pretty cool things. And I think when we understand how much birding does to work out our brain and also give us happiness, joy, and connection, both to people and to nature, it becomes one of the most amazing things anybody could do. And in fact, I would ask people to try to create new birders to make you feel better and to make them feel better, because it's a pretty amazing thing,
It's true.
I'm still trying with my family. They don't, they think I'm nuts. Been trying for years.
They're right for more reason than one. But yeah, no, I know, I know what you mean, and it's true. I think, and you see it. All of us that are birders, we just want to build more birders because we know the peace and it's a life in pursuit of beauty and awe of nature. It's hard to, once you start to experience that, you don't ever really want to let it go. And I saw you were among a number of our colleagues that posted the article. I don't remember if it was in The Guardian or someplace else, the article that came out that basically, for people that watch birds, that brings them more richness than money and wealth ever could, more happiness. It's pretty interesting article.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's I buy it, and I think the issue is that more and more people are also, as we talked last time, just getting into it, and that's a real good thing for the world.
Yes.
It's there's a lot of benefits to be gained from birding, and maybe next time we can also talk about how it's important for people who've been doing this for a long time and who've kind of been in writing books and doing this kind of stuff to facilitate the shift of birding to a more meaningful type of activity than strictly sort of the old school, go there, see it, move on to the next bird, more of an acquisitional kind of birding to a more holistic, and I don't know what to call it, but I think there's a richer birding out there that could actually include the acquisitional birding within it, but
yes.
That's not the entire realm of how this works.
Not to the exclusion of everything else. Yes, our podcast is called Life List, a birding podcast, and I think next episode we can get into a little bit why we're going with that title and a little bit of the philosophy behind it. I think that's be a good one for discussion. I think we should invite people that are listening, hopefully the many, many thousands of listeners. If there's stuff you'd like us to take up, if there's subjects you'd like us to take up, please do let us know. We do have an email address and a website. I think it's lifelistpodcast@gmail.com, right? Have I got that right?
I think so.
Yeah, lifelistpodcast@gmail.com.
We'll put it all
have it on
the notes.
Yeah.
Down below.
But yeah, we want to hear from you guys what you'd like to talk about. And we expect to do some interviews here and there too with different folks. So yeah, we hope to hear from you. Anyway, Al, I think we should probably wrap up for today. But good chatting with you, amigo. And more soon, huh?
Yeah, right. That was fun.
Yeah,
I can't wait till the next one. Yeah, I know. I want to see those Colombia pictures.
Oh, yes. Got to share them. All right. Thanks. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye-bye.